Vito Spatafore, played by Joseph Aragonascoli. We first see this actor in Season 1 of The Sopranos. He plays Gino at the bakery, where Christopher shoots a worker in the foot. Later, he plays Vito, a lower-ranking member of the DeMeo crime family, working with Richie Aprile. Soon, he rises in the ranks and becomes a captain, and one of Tony's top earners. Vito proves himself to be a come-from-behind kind of guy. He takes out Jackie Jr. by sneaking up behind him and shooting him in the back of the head. In a later season, he walks behind a man who insists they exchange insurance information and call it in. Vito also shoots him in the back of the head. He's a come-from-behind kind of guy in other ways too, and that part of Vito's lifestyle is the foundation for this essay. Let's discuss some of the hypocrisy and unanswered questions surrounding it. Keep watching until the end, where I ponder some questions. Was Vito 100% gay? Was he bisexual? Was his blood pressure medication making him act in ways that go against his nature? Season 5 is when we get one of the biggest surprises about Vito's sexuality. Meadow's boyfriend Finn arrives at work and sees Vito blowing a security guard in a parked truck. Vito gets up from the security guard's lap and makes eye contact with Finn. He later comes on strong and insists that Finn go to a baseball game with him, saying, "You're f***ing going." Finn just doesn't show up, worried that maybe Vito will f*** him and then kill him. That's the end of the speculation for that season. Then in Season 6, Vito sees Meadow and Finn at Johnny Sack's daughter's wedding. He calls Finn handsome and Meadow beautiful, says they will make good-looking children together. Nothing out of the ordinary, but it makes the viewer read more into his comments after seeing what happened in Season 5. Later that night, Vito kisses his wife and says he has to go out and make some collections. It cuts to a club scene of a gay bar. Sal and another guy are there making collections, showing that the mafia doesn't discriminate when it comes to collecting money. They even shake down gay bars. They collect the money and are on their way out, and the camera pans over to a scene of Vito dancing with a man. This scene is so over the top with its flamboyancy that when watching it live, my brother let out a screaming loud laugh. Vito was dressed in what I think of as a mixture of S&M gear and motorcycle clothes. He's swinging his arm around like he's going to lasso the man up and steal him. He kisses the man and leads him away on a leash. This was written in for comedy. Also, listen to the song that's playing. It's a remix of Money for Nothing by Dire Straits. Sal incredulously asks Vito, "You're a f***ing fat." Money for Nothing has the lyrics that include the little f*** 3 times. But the song is making fun of those that call rock stars little f***, because while you have to move color TVs and refrigerators, the rock stars are getting rich off of having good times. Maybe this is a nod to how Vito is a top earner. Yes, he may be gay, but maybe Carlo should start sucking because Vito is bringing in 3 times what he did on construction. Like the rock stars, Vito is rich. Christopher meets a guy outside of an AA meeting who tells him that Sal caught Vito at a bar. Christopher wastes no time telling the guys about what he heard. They have doubts. Tony says he's not going to condemn the man over some douchebag from Yonkers. Once Meadow tells Carmela what Finn saw, Tony brings Finn in for questioning. It's somewhat similar to a police interrogation. Finn is terrified. He asks, "He's not going to know I told you?" The mafia is a masculine world. Some may try to act more masculine than they really are. Remember how Uncle Junior told his girlfriend not to say a word about him going down on her? He made it clear to not be a blabbermouth because guys would think if he sucks that, then he'll suck anything. When he finds out that she was after telling people, he breaks up with her after smashing a pie in her face, but seems to regret it shortly after. This makes me wonder if these guys truly believe what they say, or if they're putting on an act. They seem insecure about themselves. Think of when little Polly made a gay joke to Eugene. Eugene smashes his face with a bottle and kicks him while he's down. This is the same episode where Vito the security guard. Eugene's reaction to a joke sums up why Vito kept that part of himself hidden. For the guys that don't seem to care, their sexuality is called into question. When Patsy says, "I could care less," Polly says that maybe he's a flambe. Patsy just gives him the finger and shrugs it off. Carlo talks about dragging Vito behind his truck, and Polly says he feels betrayed. And when they find out that Vito was pitching and not catching, that seems to solidify their disgust for him. It's the last straw. Their reaction seems extreme, especially when it concerns one of the family's top earners. And these guys are not exactly moral. They're murderers and extortionists, and spend a lot of time fraternizing at a strip club. Let's discuss some of the hypocrisy from the guys concerning Vito. When Dr. Melfi asks Tony what the problem is, Tony just elongates the noun when he says, "He's a fag." Melfi brings up that many of the men in Tony's circle have done prison time, and probably engaged in homosexual activity while in the can. Tony tells her that you get a pass for that, because there are no women there. He makes sure to add that his jail time was very short, so he never had the need for any of that. But Tony also tells Dr. Melfi that part of him doesn't care about Vito's lifestyle. This reinforces my argument that Tony only wanted to get rid of Vito to save face, to be the masculine mob boss who upholds standards. He tells Melfi that he's a strict Catholic, which is one of the most comical lines in the show. Tony's a murderer, thief, and serial adulterer. AJ even asks his father in an earlier episode why they never go to church. Tony may be a confirmed Catholic, but a strict Catholic he is not. Tony gets frustrated and reluctantly tells Silvio that Vito's got to go. He says that if Vito wanted to pursue that lifestyle, he should have done so quietly. Silvio says he wasn't he? There's some more comic relief in the series. I argue that Tony made this decision to placate his guys, and even Phil. It would be hypocritical if Tony did this out of upholding codes of honor. After all, he did set up Feech to get arrested and sent back to prison. In the end, Phil kills Vito before one of Tony's guys can. I guess it would have been Carlo, because that's who Tony told Silvio to delegate the task to. And was Phil also a closeted homosexual? Phil literally comes out of the closet in the hotel scene where Vito is beaten to death. Perhaps that's a topic for another video. Here are some questions I have. Was Vito 100% gay? Vito did have a wife, but of course, that could have just been his way of saving face in a masculine environment. He also had a Gumar, but obviously a Gumar was not required. Bobby never had a Gumar, and Johnny Sack was very faithful to his wife. So was Vito putting on a show by having a Gumar, or was he genuinely sexually attracted to her? In the episode where Christopher throws food at Vito and calls him a parade float, Vito was sitting down with the guys, shooting the Referring to Adriana, Vito says that pretty little shrimp can suck this tailpipe anytime. He says that when Christopher was in rehab, he was this close. You could argue that Vito was just saying that to keep up a straight appearance, but Adriana confirms this in another episode. She said that Vito kept calling her to ask if she needed anything. This puts it into doubt that Vito was 100% gay. If what Vito said about Adriana is true, then he's bisexual at the least. Vito tells Tony that he was never a and that his blood pressure medication messed with his mind. He said he could even get a note from his doctor. Maybe the blood pressure medication did mess with his mind, because why would a high-ranking mafioso go to a busy gay bar? Not just go to a gay bar, but dress up in the most flamboyantly gay outfit imaginable. You would think he wanted to get caught. Vito was not stupid. He was one of Tony's most successful captains. Watch that scene again, where Vito says he's not a He seems very sincere. He says, "I'm not a I never was." Watch that scene again. He seems very sincere. Either he's a very good liar, or he's telling the truth. Vito's coming out, or rather being found out, adds a lot of comedy to The Sopranos. It also puts the hypocrisy of the mob on display. We get some psychological insight into Tony's actions, with him only wanting Vito to go just to save face. Phil takes matters into his own hands, which adds to the tension of the New Jersey and New York families. And if it wasn't enough for Vito to be killed, he had a pool cue shoved up his ass. Surely he didn't deserve that. At the same time, we must not forget that Vito was a murderer. He shot a man in cold blood in the woods. Tony yells at Paulie about taking Vito out. Are you going to take care of his kids after he's gone? But before we feel too sorry for Vito, let's remember that the man Vito shot in the woods may have had a dependent and loving family too.